You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have a pretty awesome guest today. Writer-director Adam White has a theatrical release and a VOD release of his latest romantic comedy coming out called The Funny Thing About Love. I got to have a sneak peek of it. I actually really enjoyed it. I couldn't wait to have him on this show. And the really cool thing is one of the actors in the film is Jon Heder from Napoleon Dynamite. Well, Adam, I want to say thanks for being on this show. And before we kind of launch into your film, if we can get a little bit of your origin story and what really led you into this process.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I was, as a kid, I loved making movies. I think it's a standard story year from a lot of filmmakers. My dad bought a video camera when I was about 11 or 12. And I just like my imagination went wild and we'd be filming stuff all the time. But my brother actually was going to be a film major at UCLA. He had just graduated from high school and he was killed in a car accident. Oh. And so that, I don't know if it was me like just wanting to honor his name, but It was something that was always in the back of my mind. Meanwhile, I'm 6'6", so I played basketball my whole life and played in college. And that was really kind of the thing that I was most into. All the while I would be like working on scripts just for fun, like with no idea what I was going to do with them other than I just like to do it. So anyways, at some point as I got into college, I was like, you know what, maybe I'll go to film school, and went to film school I had already had 2 kids at this point. This is after I stopped playing basketball, and I was married, had 2 kids, and I went to film school for 3 weeks, and everyone there was 18 and a lot younger than me and a lot different than me.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, and my advisor's like, you're going to be poor if you do this. So are you sure you want to do this? Because you have kids already. And I'm like, I don't want to be poor. That doesn't sound good at all. And everyone's younger than me. And this seems weird. So I'm going to go get a business degree and then I'm going to come back to this. So I did that. I went and got a business degree, started my own business, and then eventually sold it and said, all right, I'm going to pursue filmmaking full time now and see what happens.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, all right. So where did the idea for Funny Thing About Love come from?
Well, my wife is like a massive Hallmark fan. She watches these like during the Christmas time. It's on like 24/7 in her house. You know what I mean? And as trying to be a good husband, I'll sit down and watch some with her. But frankly, if you've seen one, you've seen pretty much all of them. And it's it's very formulaic, right? And it's not there's not a ton of variation. And I'm just like, man, I feel like I could do so much better than this, like how about I'm going to make one that I actually, or write one that I actually want to watch.
Okay.
So I started writing it, and then COVID hit and I had all this downtime, and I'm like, I'm just going to finish that screenplay. And it actually, once I got back into it with all that time, I was like, I got through it really fast, and it turned out really good. And I was like, wow, these characters all have their own voice. This is like it was like a throwback to the 90s, the ensemble cast. And I was like, I'm really enjoying this script. I didn't think I'd ever do a rom-com in my entire life. I didn't have any interest in doing it. It was just an idea that I had one day, and I'm like, let me just see. And once I did it, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fun. And anyway, so once it was done, I'm like, I started talking to a couple producers. I'm like, let's pursue this thing. And we were able to raise the funds pretty quick and make it happen.
That's amazing. So what I really liked about the script, so you mentioned the ensemble cast, is that the ensemble cast is funny. You've got quite a great cast of characters there. I try not to get into too many spoilers, but the grandfather character is absolutely hysterical. The tension between him and his son-in-law who married his dad. It's just really funny. It's great. You've captured all of that, and you have all of these really great characters surrounding, of course, the classic will they, won't they, reunite, the old spark. Any of these characters inspired from real life, or what kind of drove you to create this ensemble cast?
Yeah, it's probably inspired from real life. I mean, Grandpa for sure he's a lot like my dad,
Yeah.
where you just, people get to a certain age where it's like they're only hearing part of the conversation in the room, and then they're just like picking out certain things and then responding to that. The scene where he's sitting in front of everybody at the football game, you just kind of have to, when there's somebody like that, you have to bow to whatever their needs are, and just, you put your own needs aside. And so, I come from a very big family. I had 8 brothers and sisters, and, like we're having, everyone for Thanksgiving, there's gonna be 50 people at my house. So that's just my immediate family, by the way. Anyways,
wow.
So I'm used to a big family, and you just get all these characters when you have a big family. And so for sure there was inspiration that came from those things. I think also I've always kind of had this secret desire to do stand-up comedy. And so I would write stand-up comedy, and then I'm like, I'm too scared to go do this on a stage because no one's going to laugh. So I wrote as a character, one of the characters is a stand-up comedian, and I, had him do my comedy in front of an audience when we filmed. We didn't, because of timing, we couldn't use a lot of it, but it was fun to see that the audience actually laughed to the comedy that I'd written. Anyways, things like that for sure come from real life.
Yeah. So playing around thematically, we had a lot about, obviously family and accepting who you are as a person, and then also playing around with, second chances. Is that something that you wanted to explore through this film in like kind of like a cathartic way? I mean, obviously, because you gave up a career to start a new career as a filmmaker, I could kind of see that influence there, especially in the main character who is dealing with the fact that she may lose her business.
Yeah. I think it was really just the idea that it's never too late, right? Like that concept to me is one that rings true. And, I'm the type of person that just takes action. When I want to change in my life, I'll just take action, whether I have any skills or ability or reason to do it or not. I'll just do it anyways and go, I don't like where I'm at now. I'm just going to change it. You know what I mean? And so you see that theme going throughout the movie. And in fact, there's references to Groundhog Day in the movie.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And it's kind of like this hidden, Easter egg of him wanting a do-over, just like Groundhog Day, he got do-overs all the time to fix all the mistakes. So anyways, for sure that theme is there.
No, and it really carries out, and it's nice to see that driven even throughout all of the characters, even like Jon Heder's character, he's stuck in the 90s, right? So other people are trying to kind of move on and have that second chance and start over, but he can't even get his language right. He's using terms from the 90s that nobody nowadays would understand, and he'd be like, people still say that, and they say no, and he goes, well, it feels right, and I'm like, I am that guy. So I totally appreciate that, and it's nice to see that get carried through.
I think that there's a lot of people probably that were born in the 70s that that's true. In fact, he and I are exactly the same age. I mean, we're about 10 days apart from each other. So it was very easy to write things that I know that he could relate to in real life, because it's stuff that for me was very personal.
So let's talk about how you got this thing off the ground. You said you met with producers and you're able to get funding really quick. Are you able to kind of walk us through that process a little bit, maybe pull the curtain back just so that any writers out there who are looking to get their stuff going forward can at least get some inspiration from it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing for me, because this is the question that every filmmaker has, right? How do you get funding for your movie? And there's no one answer, and it's so hard. I totally get that. I mean, the first film that I did, feature that I did was called Inspired Guns. That was 7 years ago. So it's been that long between movies. That just is an idea of how hard it is to actually do this. But on that one, after I had sold the business, I ended up, I was able to raise a little bit of the money, probably about 20% of the budget.
Okay.
and from two different investors. And then I was like, well, like I told you before, I just do things, whether I should or not, I just do. And so I'm like, I need to make this happen. I'll never forgive myself if I don't. So I'm just going to pay for the rest of it myself.
Wow.
Which was a major risk.
Yeah.
And turned out to really be financially devastating in the end, which is a long story. But the point is, when I got the first little bit of returns from the movie, I immediately paid back the investors plus their interest.
Okay.
Even though I didn't take a penny from it, right? Because there wasn't enough there. And they were happy. They were happy. It was a good deal for them, right? They got their interest. They were happy. It wasn't a great deal for me, but but I made sure I took care of them. And the reason I'm telling you that is because when it came time for this one, I immediately went back to those two investors and said, hey, I'm finally ready to do my next movie. Do you guys want to get in on this?
Yeah.
And they both said yes. And they both came in at a higher amount this time.
Oh.
So no investor likes to be first in, right? It's
yeah,
just
that's
like
so true.
Especially in film, it's just too scary. And the fact that they had done it with me before, they were both willing and ready to do it. And then for me, it's what you hear that talk, people talk about that, The Secret, that book or whatever, it's out there. I haven't read it, but I know that.
Oh yeah. That's about manifestation.
Yeah. Put something out in the universe and it'll work its way out. So I was like, hey, I'm just going to start talking about this movie everywhere I go.
That's awesome.
And so I was sitting with some friends and I just said, hey, I just got my first set of financing for the movie. We're getting ready to do this, and that was it. That was the conversation. I was just excited about it because I had just gotten the email. And 2 days later, one of those guys saw me at the gym. He comes up to me. So tell me more about this movie. Like, how does somebody invest in it? And so then, now we have, like 30% of our budget already in place, or 40%. It was a significant amount.
Yeah.
He and I sat down for lunch and I said, hey, look, if we can't be friends, if you lose all your money, then don't give me any money. Only give me the amount that you're happy to lose. And so he still did a decent amount. And, and then another friend, again, somebody that just lives nearby that we go to church together and stuff. They wanted to get involved in a movie. They had something they'd want to do all their life. And so I said, well, this is the one. And so they invested, and then pretty soon it's just like this snowball effect. And then you start casting the thing. I said, all right, we have enough to go into pre-production. Let's start casting. Let's get this thing going, man. We can make this movie. Even if we don't have enough for post, we'll raise it after.
Right.
If we have to. So, because I know there's just this snowball effect of getting a project moving forward, and then people just want to get involved, right? Like they'll tell you no until it's actually happening, and then they'll be like, all right, I want in. Because everybody wants to be involved in movies, especially not commercials. Like it's like a narrative fiction people want to be involved in. So, anyways, so that was we were just raising money all along the way. The producers had a network of people and lawyers that they had reached out to,
right.
and those we got investments there, and then pretty soon we were.
No, I think it's awesome. I mean, it's really important to show that you did the big plunge on Inspired Guns. You fostered that relationship with those producers. You paid them back, even though it hurt you financially, which I can only imagine was probably incredibly difficult to recover from. So you have my respect for that. And then the courage to take the plunge again, but this time it sounds like it worked even better. And to get that investment and to get that ball rolling is fantastic. So then how did the script get to Jon Heder?
So we cast the lead actress, Summer Bellessa. She's also a blogger. She had this blog with Brooke White, who was one of the finalists on a season of American Idol. Those two are best friends. So they have this blog called Girls with Classes, right? And Brooke is a musician first and an actress second, but she does do acting. And so when we cast Summer Bellessa, we needed Annie in the movie to be a super big personality, someone that's very likable, but also, she can meddle in relationships, but not annoy people. I needed people not to be annoyed by what she was doing. And Summer's like, well, hey, my best friend Brooke is really probably the right personality for this. And so I had her come read with Summer, and it truly was perfect for the role.
She was fantastic.
So they play best friends in the movie, but they're also best friends in real life. Wasn't much of a stretch for anybody. Anyways, so after they were cast, the one thing I learned from doing the first movie was nobody cares about your movie if you don't have name actors in it. They
right. Yeah.
And so We had Barry Corbin, which he was a decent name because that guy's been in everything.
Yeah, he's great.
He's good. He's a fan favorite. Everyone we've shown the film to.
Oh yeah.
But he wasn't a big enough name as far as I was concerned.
Sure.
You know, for a draw. And so I went through IMDb, literally every male actor in that age range that I thought we could possibly get.
Wow.
And made a list of like 5 to 10 guys that I was like, all right, these are the 10 I think we can realistically get that are recognizable names. And Jon Heder was at the top of the list. And so we just started with him because, you know, I knew that he had a connection to some of the people in our cast. I didn't know how close it was. And I reached out to everybody, said, does anybody, what's your relationship with Jon Heder? And Summer had just filmed, or not Summer, Brooke had just filmed a music video with him.
Oh, cool.
She had just invited him to be in her music video, and he came as a background dancer. And it's actually pretty funny, but that's how they met. But now they were friends. And so he said, hey, will you just reach out to him and see if he has any interest in doing this? You know, he'll get to come during COVID and hang out for a couple of weeks and be in this movie. And, you know, so she sent the script to him and he replied and said, you know, I don't want to do a Hallmark movie, but, and I said, I assured him, I said, no, there's way too much comedy in this for Hallmark. They won't want it.
Right.
We're going to do a traditional release on this. And then once he said, all right, let's work it out with my agent. And we knew we had a good chance and we would make it happen. And at that point I went back to the script and said, all right, if we're going to have Jon Heder play this role, we need to give him at least 2 more scenes plus beef up some other scenes. And so I went and I wrote extra scenes for him because you want to take advantage of his, you know, of his skill set and put him in the movie as much as you can. That makes sense.
No, I mean, I've been brought on to indie assignments before where I wrote the script and then the producer came back to me and they said, okay, we just casted this named actor. Go back and beef up these 3 scenes. Okay. So I went through and I had to beef up those 3 scenes and then create a whole nother scene to really center around their talent. So I think it's so smart that you went ahead and did that, gave him even more time to play around with the script and really use his talent. So did you end up when you get that name, did you get to leverage that name a little bit as far as it came to like locations or anything like that?
Oh man, I can't. We have leveraged that name so at every turn. I promise you, like everything we did, going back and trying to raise more money. Hey, we got Jon Heder in this. This is going to.
Oh yeah,
huge.
that's of course.
Locations, like we filmed at a school. A school let us film at their school for 4 different scenes because the principal was a huge fan of Napoleon Dynamite. He said, "Just film here, man. Anything you guys want. We didn't have to pay a dime."
That's
you know what
awesome.
I mean. We just made sure that he got a nice photo with Jon Heder. So I mean, stuff like that. I mean, everybody we've reached out to after for promotion, all the PR. John's done a ton of PR and will continue to do a bunch of PR as we release the film. You know, he's been on Hollywood Reporter, Forbes.
Wow.
You know, he was on the Tamron Hall show, all promoting our movie, right? Like we don't get that kind of press if we don't have him. We just, they wouldn't care. So again, this was, if you take nothing else away from this episode, get somebody a recognizable name in your movie because it will pay for itself. Anything you have to pay them, it will pay for itself.
Yeah, there's definitely a return there. And then you just work around whatever their rate is. You build that into your shooting schedule so that you're not shooting him for a month straight. You bring him in, you do 3-4 days if you have to, and you get all the scenes done. And then you spread that out over the film and you can still leverage that name, which is the smart way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So getting this thing released, how difficult was that? Getting this out? I mean, a theatrical release on an indie budget, that's impressive.
Yeah, well, we started looking. We were going to do our own. Like, we were honestly going to do our own theatrical release that we were the distributors on it.
Just like For Wallet.
Yeah, well, no, there was a theatrical consultant I'd worked with for Inspired Guns, and we were going to work with him again, but we just felt like it was too risky because you have to put all the marketing dollars in yourself at that point, and we didn't want to raise. We don't want to have to raise another, several $100,000 to do this. So we started. So then we had Gravitas Ventures, which is a distribution company, reach out to me.
Yeah, they're
say,
great.
Hey, we're interested in the movie, and I sent it to them that night, and they the next morning had called back and said we want it. We want to do theatrical and
that's fantastic.
VOD and worldwide, and we'll give you a minimum guarantee. Like they were like,
wow, that's amazing.
12 hours, they were all in with a minimum guarantee. So
well, it's because you have a good film, dude. I mean, listen, if it was garbage, they wouldn't want it. So I mean, that right there tells you everything you're doing is right.
Yeah, that was very encouraging, right? Because there was no reason for them to, and I didn't realize this then. I've only learned since then that nobody else is getting minimum guarantees on these for independent films. So
Yeah.
that was very encouraging. So then I just, I vetted them a little bit, reached out. I just looked at what films they had done and reached out to the filmmakers and said, hey, what was your experience with this distributor? Because I didn't know them before. And frankly, it's the Wild West in distribution.
Well, right now it is, because there was a whole crash in the distribution market when a lot of the indie predatory distributors started to go under, or they weren't paying their clients. And so there has been like a whole issue with distribution, but I feel like it's starting to kind of come out a little bit and find its feet.
Yeah, it seems like the ones that are left are the ones that are definitely more trustworthy.
Yeah.
But even then, I made sure to ask a bunch of filmmakers what their experience was, and
good.
They weren't all positive, but any filmmaker that doesn't make their money back is going to be negative towards the distributor, right?
Yeah.
Whether most of them probably didn't have names in the movie or whatever it is. So that was fine. I understood that somebody who had a film that with no name actors, that was just an indie film they did for cheap and didn't make all their money back, they're going to be they're probably not going to be super positive towards the distributor, but those that were more like our film, they were all very positive. And so I was like, okay, I feel comfortable enough. Let's go ahead and move forward with these guys. And so, yeah, that's what we did.
Well, I think I've grilled you a lot here, and your answers have been fantastic. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
I mean, I can tell you that the movie will be out on December 3rd. You haven't asked me that.
Well, that's why I throw the question.
Yeah, right, December 3rd, we're going to be in theaters. I think we'll be in 10 cities. So it's not a huge theatrical run, but we'll be in 10 cities plus VOD everywhere. So Amazon, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, the big ones for sure. And then a bunch of smaller, obscure places where you can rent and buy.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. But that's next week, I guess it is, as we're filming, as we're recording now. But
yeah, I will. I'll make sure to mention that release in the show notes. Does the film have a website? Yeah,
funnythingaboutLove.com is the website. We got the trailer on there. We've got behind the scenes stuff, and we also have where you can view it. So you'll be able to see all the theaters plus anywhere on demand you can view it. So it'll be updated for sure.
I think it was a good film. I literally cracked up every time Grandpa was on there. It was absolutely hilarious. And then just watching the family together as a whole was a lot of fun. So I had some pretty good laugh out loud moments. So I appreciate that. It's hard to do. So in order to get that to happen, especially when I'm watching it alone.
I know. That was my biggest worry, is sending it to you when you're going to watch it by yourself. I'm like, oh, it's not. We just had our first screening last weekend with a packed crowd, and it was the energy was so amazing. It's Everyone fantastic. Was laughing throughout the whole movie, and I'm like, man, this needs to be in theaters, because if you just watch it with the crowd, the experience is that much better.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, so, Adam White, I really appreciate you being on the show, man.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, if anybody has any questions for me or wants to reach out or connect, just Instagram's the best way to do that. @RealAdamWhite is the username. So
all right,
reach out to me.
I'll put that in the notes for you too, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.